You all for being here. Thank you for joining us on live stream. As you might know, this is going out around the world, and we're thrilled to have you all here. I want to take a few minutes to talk about how this got started, and I really have to give credit and make sure I mention our friends at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. I'll introduce, Tina Marie Tyler, who's the she's an executive producer on the advisory board from Universal Hip Hop Museum. She and the team have been in touch with us for over a year now, talking about working together as they build their incredible space in the Bronx. Until then, we are glad to host programs like this, and we hope that this is the first of many. We also partnered with the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective and MusiCares, two wonderful affiliate organizations from the Recording Academy, which we're all part of. So can I have a round of applause for everybody today? Thank you. So I want to take a minute to introduce Harvey Mason Jr. He is the CEO of the Recording Academy, and we have a message from him. Will you roll it, please, guys?
Good afternoon, I'm Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Recording Academy. We all know music has the power to heal, but what heals the creators of that music that helps us through our worst days and becomes a part of us during our best days? How do the hip-hop artists and those in this ecosystem maintain their mental well-being in an environment full of trauma, stigmas, and industry pressures? Well, it all starts with the types of conversations we're having here today. At the Recording Academy, we're all committed to supporting artists in both their private and public lives. We care deeply about the mental well-being and health of all of our music people. And we care about ensuring equitable access to culturally competent mental health care. In short, we care about our creative community and join those who continue to advocate on behalf of their unique needs of our hip-hop family. I want to thank the incredible efforts of the Universal Hip Hop Museum, and I want to shout out Rocky Bucano, Tina Marie Tyler, the Grammy Museum, the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective, and MusiCares for producing a powerful panel about a critical issue. Together, we can work to eradicate the negative stigma associated with seeking mental health treatment. And we ask that you all join us in making mental health for the hip-hop community a top priority. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Harvey. So at the end of our program today, we're going to talk about, and we're going to show you some resources. This will also be available on the Grammy Museum's Collection Live platform, and we're going to share it as well through the Universal Hip Hop Museum. So that will come at the end of this program. But now let me please introduce and bring up my friend and colleague, Tina Marie Tyler.
Thank you, Rita. I am so excited about our conversation today. It is a conversation that is well overdue. We are losing hip-hop artists and those in the hip-hop ecosystem at an alarming rate because of mental illness. Today, we start the discussion in the hopes of being able to encourage people to seek treatment and seek help. We'd like to be able to give you guys signs, what to watch for and what to look for, so that we can help our brothers and sisters elevate themselves, elevate their art, and elevate their craft. And with that said, I would like to introduce to you our esteemed panel as well as our moderator. I'd also like to say to you, too, that we do have two people that unfortunately cannot join us today. One person is G. Harborough, and the other person is Don Richards. And we wish them well and encourage them to participate in the future. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our esteemed panel, starting with Mr. Adrian Miller. Please put your hands together. And the next person who is coming to the stage is an industry veteran and titan, Mr. Michael Blue Williams. And then next up is another industry titan who definitely has a lot to say about mental health, mental well-being, and our hip-hop community. I'd like to introduce you to, and please welcome to the stage, Eric Brooks. And last but surely not least, we have our moderator, the host with the most, Mr. Nick Cannon. You get my mic.
Thank you. So I'll take it from here?
Then you take it from there.
How's everybody doing? Y'all good? Like Tina said, it's unfortunate that a few of our panelists, specifically the artists are always late, as you see. But just certain things happen where they couldn't be here, but they send their love and they send their respects to make sure that this important conversation actually goes forward, and hopefully we can catch up with them and their energy on another time. But I want to take first and foremost to start off because we have some great introductions, but truly everybody was introduced as an industry titan. But I want you guys to kind of dive in a little bit more specifically of what you've done, because the importance of mental health, which we'll dive into, is what we're discussing today. But you got to know that when we have, I want to say, you can call them OGs or elder statesmen or people who have seen it all. You know what I mean? I know that these brothers up here have seen so much and can actually speak from many sides, from dealing with artists to over the decades watching hip-hop grow into the massive culture that it has been. And these brothers are truly some fixtures. So I want to start with Adrian first, to where you can give us a little background and introduction of, one, how long you've been in the industry, and, where you taking it at this point. You ain't got to tell your age or nothing like that, but just let them know, run the stats.
First and foremost, I just am honored to be amongst my peers and the audience and talking to something as a subject that's super important. Being in this business for approximately 30 plus years, I'm an advocate for the artist, first and foremost. So as we sit and we mull over what is the next wave of things to come, my side of the business is specifically in the management realm. And it's managing the expectation and managing the opportunities and getting in front of where we grow. So I'm here for the duration of what it is God's given me these gifts to be a part of, and those attributes. So, I'm down for the program.
The man behind the magic is what he's letting you know. For 30 years, made a lot of moves, and someone else who does the same, and even in my own personal career and many other superstar careers, Michael Blue Williams. Run it down for him.
Thank you. This is my 30th year in the business. This is my 4th decade. Started in '92. Have had the honor of watching a lot of talent start with a dream and turn it into reality, and have been able to see that dream sometimes become nightmares. The reality of what you think success and fame is going to bring is a lot of times different from the reality of it. So it's been important, especially for me in the last 15 years, to not just manage my artists and manage their careers and guide them, but to also focus on their mental health and how are they dealing with this and how are they dealing with family issues and things like that. So whenever I have an opportunity to speak, the importance of gentlemen like ourselves that have been in it to speak on it and be honest about our journeys and the struggles that we have, to lend a voice so that next manager coming up that's dealing with stress, that next artist that thinks he's the only one dealing with it, they realize that it's not just them. So, I've been blessed to have a great career. I'm happy to be here today.
Genius. Appreciate you. And of course, brother Eric Brooks over there, man. You got to break it down for him. Let him know what it is.
So we're not mentioning artists or anything like that?
Oh,
we can.
We can throw artists out.
Hey, once y'all done, I was about to run who they all manage and rock with.
I might be the oldest one up in here too. So I've been in the game since '89. I started out with Two Live Crew.
Yeah.
And then came over to California and started working with NWA, Dre and Ice Cube. And then I had my label through New Tribe that was funded by Virgin, and so I've always been on the label
Tried
side.
to get signed to New Tribe when I was 15. He didn't turn me down.
And I did, I mentioned that because I was dealing with like some real street stuff, dealing with Scarface, dealing with Ghetto Boys, and so I saw a lot, working with WC, I ended up managing WC for a minute with West Side Connection. So I've been on the side of the artist, from a label side, but almost like acting like a father figure, trying to educate, put them on game, teach them about the music business in general. And to be honest with you, the reason why I'm up here is because I know that I failed in a lot of ways in kind of nurturing that mental well-being for the artist, and kind of perpetuated some of the, what we say, numbing out and escape, because it is a rebellious form of music for our culture. And so I'm just excited to be here and participate and contribute to a much well-needed discussion.
Definitely, man. We appreciate you for being here, and it's so amazing to hear the names like NWA, Two Live Crew, Far Side, Outkast. Like these are brothers that are intrinsic and a part of the DNA of that rebellious nature that you speak of, but more the outlet of what hip hop has been. When you think about over the years, what hip hop was the voice of the streets. Hip hop was truly that process of when we talk about having an outlet, holding space. We didn't have those terms back then, you know what I mean, when we started, but that's what the music was doing. It was reporting, it was documenting and holding space for the trauma that we were experiencing, for the vulnerability as men, for the system that we were butting up against, and to have some people that were involved with some of these brilliant minds that were allowed to speak directly to our generations, to our community, and shape culture. And then to sit up here today and discuss, even as myself, it's funny, people saw I was posting about this, talking about how excited I was, and and all the jokes start coming, like, you the moderator? They need to be moderating you. But I'm one of those people, you get what you see, you know what I mean? I'm a very open, honest, and been vulnerable throughout my entire career. I think that's what's always gone on in my career. I've never tried to be something that I'm not, and I've done a lot of processing. I would say you don't just go through it, you grow through it, and having the opportunity of being a student of the game and coming in this game really, really young, watching people do it right and watching people do it wrong. The one thing that I always said, if you stay true to yourself, even in your most vulnerable moments, you'll always come out on the other end. But it's when others try to shape you, when others try to put you in a box, when others try to diagnose you, then that's when those demons start to arise. And that's the only, demons only have power over illusions. And when we create these illusions and start really living in these illusions, then that's when we lose sense of reality. And that's what happens a lot of times when we see this process. And that's why I think sitting here as a person who's vulnerable, as a person who's always going through something, always dealing with something, if I can live in the truest form, if I can have the authenticity of I'm going to get through it, you know what I mean? I'm going to do what I can and let God do what I can't. You know what I mean? It's those processes of understanding we all got something to go through. We all going through something, especially in this day and age. And we all need to have these conversations, even as black men, because we're taught to be strong. We're taught to hold it all in and not cry and suck it up. And that we gotta erase that trauma. You know what I mean? Because that is truly a buck mentality. That's somebody he's here for work. He's here for service. He's not here to feel. And throughout the generations, we all know that we've never had the opportunity to feel. So how can we heal? You know what I mean? We're supposed to be tough. So who's nurturing and talking to those soft sides of a black man there's no blueprint for it. There's no one who showed us generation before. Therapy is okay, or going and talking to someone, crying, all of these things, even in listening to, and I'm gonna let them talk. I talk a lot, but I can't wait to hear the conversations about dealing with some of the people that I've looked up to, and not just in on the records and in front of the camera, but gentlemen who helped shape some of the greatest albums, some of the greatest projects, and then even people that are no longer here because of mental health that wasn't attended to the right way. I mean, I know a couple of us on this stage share people that, were taken from us out of nowhere. Now, we couldn't believe it because a lot of mental health wasn't addressed. So that's why this is important for me. That's why I'm here. I literally had we had an arena in the Bay Area last night where we was performing with Too Short to a sold out crowd. We got Vegas tonight and the Crypto Center tomorrow, but this is the thing I was most excited about this entire weekend. So it's an honor to be here. So I think the first thing I want to talk about, maybe if you guys can talk a little bit more, man. I mean, like I said, even Blue, just talking to you directly, man, one of the people I've always looked up to. One of my first major performances was opening up for Outkast when I was 15 years old. And just, man, you see, I got the turban on still. I got that from Andre 3000. I ain't gonna front. But that dude's mind is so brilliant. And then Big Boy, too. But, I mean, to be a part of that movement that when they've been talking about mental health from day one, and you were there, I mean, and even to know who they are as the icons. And the Grammy Award, they got something in this museum town. The Grammy Award winning true legends of Outkast, man. How talk a little bit about that process and even as a manager, having to talk to those guys on every level.
I think that one of the first things you realize as a manager is the width of your responsibilities. I think that when you manage artists, it's not just you dealing with the music and the label. That's just a piece of what you do. What you have to do is you also have to guide these young men in dealing with becoming fathers and dealing with things that they never dealt with in the past, like they never addressed that their fathers may not have been around. They grew up in communities where they felt like this was the only way to get out. So while you're also guiding them musically, you're trying to teach them about the world. The great relationship that I always felt that Outkast and myself had was they were from Atlanta, I was from New York. So our approaches to things were totally different. So they had a Southern way of doing things, I had a New York way. Combined, we were able to sort of teach each other to look at the world differently. And so as we became successful, as Outkast became bigger and bigger, the world didn't see the pressure that came down, because when Big Boy put on that A on their hat and he started representing Atlanta, he put all of Atlanta on Outkast's back. There are arguments, there are discussions, but the fact of the matter, there is no Southern music without Outkast. I'll stand by it at the end of the day. Like, the pop exposure that Southern hip-hop gets today is due to Outkast. So when you look at Andre, thank you, I'll take a bow for that. But when you look at, these guys did 6 albums. 6 original albums. Most rap groups only do 3 at the most. They were able to stick together and work as a team. To this day, this has now been 30 years, they're still brothers. They've been able to, when they walked away from doing Outkast every day, they didn't break up. They just wanted to do other things, and they had to respect each other. Big Boy wanted to be a father. Dre wanted to go act and do things and see the world. And the world never taught them how to be that. The problem was being signed to LaFace and Ariston, those labels, even to this day, your job is to turn out the product. Hit that ground running and go do what you got to do. Your baby moms is fighting with you. They don't care. You got to get to the radio in the morning. You having a hard mental day, don't nobody care. You better come in there on your A game. And so part of being a manager for a group like Outkast and for other artists was trying to teach them it was okay to turn it off sometimes. It's okay Leo, I know we're about to go get to work on a new album, but go take a month and go do whatever it is that you want to do and get your mind, because we aren't taught, especially as young black men, how to recharge. We're not taught how to step out, because unfortunately this hip hop machine that we created only teaches us one thing: grind. All we know is grind, go, 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 go. And so many of us grind until we're burnt out. And then unfortunately as a people, we haven't been taught how to put our arms around us when we see the burnout, when we see a Kanye burnt out, when we see these artists burnt out. We have allowed the blogs and people to
We laugh.
We laugh. Yeah. We don't hug. We don't embrace. We don't know how to nurture our own selves. So even to this day, like Nick had an artist that unfortunately committed suicide. You know, and Nick was there with this kid the whole way. As soon as Nick sent him to rehab, he sent him to mental. He did everything he could do out of his pocket. You know, and I started a label last year, and the first thing I offer all my artists is free mental health. You know? But on a larger scale, I'm challenging all the majors to offer their artists free mental health.
Facts.
You
Talk
pimp
it. Say
these
it
artists
again.
out. You grind these artists out for their talent, for everything they have, and you can't invest in an artist getting free mental health. Every artist should get free mental health from their label, not the production company, but from the majors who have the money and who make the most money.
They should have a whole department.
Yeah.
They got a department to sell your records. They got a department to market your records. They got a department to press up your records. There is, and when you think A&R, artist relations, the most relation that we need is our mental health. There needs to be someone that can show you this process. I mean, the NBA has it, the NFL has it, all of these athletes. There needs to be some, whatever it is, whether it's a psychologist, whether it's a spiritual advisor, that needs to be one of the departments in these major record labels, that someone sits there and knows how to not only deal with the artists, but the staff as well, because we all need it.
We're burning the staff out. I think that when you take a kid, and especially these days, at least it was in the past, it was you found somebody that was talented and you put them out. These days it's not even talented. You found somebody that understands social media and got their numbers up, but you don't teach them. You give an 18,
and
19-year-old kid.
Experiencing mental health is sometimes the things that gets their numbers
It's
up.
what draws them, yeah.
You know what I mean? The things that they do and say online, where you can see it's clearly a cry out for help, that's what turns them into a star. So that in itself is like, yo, we got to address that even as a community, because we're giving kids millions of dollars for having an episode or expressing things that, you know, you can see the trauma, and we're feeding the trauma instead of saying let's heal this process. We want to see the kids on Instagram with the guns and talking about, you know, how many bodies and all of that, when they that's trauma. But that's what the record labels are investing in. So it pains me a lot. I mean, just from seeing every aspect of it, to see that they will put so much money and investments into our trauma, but not into our mental health. So, I mean, I would go to Blue, and just we touch, and maybe we'll talk about the artists a little bit more, because I do want to touch on the fact that, you know, the stigma of receiving help. Because a lot of times, you know, myself included, when it first came around, people said I should go see somebody. I was like, nah, I don't need that. I'm tough, you know what I mean? Black people don't go to therapy, you know, like, it was all of these, my mama my therapist, you know, like which is true, but, you know, there's nothing like emoting and talking to someone that there's no judgment passed. But before we dig in that, because I feel like that's something that we really want to touch on, but Blue, you said something about the grind, and Adrian, I think you can speak to this as well. On the side of management and what's expected of a manager, or what's even expected of a label head, this grind mentality, the pressure to be successful, the pressure to win. Sometimes that pressure can be too much. Specifically, I see, and I just want to say that I see the pressure more on the executives, and we've lost some important people because of that pressure, because they got their shot, or they got their label, or they got their opportunity, and not only now that they got to impress the system and this white man that gave them a job, and they say, we gonna get you, this is your shot, but then also your community that's looking up to you say, oh, now you got the ball, so you got to sign me, you got to put the hood on, you got to do all this stuff. Can you guys speak to that pressure from that side of it, and how is dealing with that for your mental health?
I think the through line with regards to being an executive versus curating art and helping artists make the challenge to teach them what the label needs versus what they want to do in terms of their own voice. The challenge is being true. You said it earlier, being true to thine self. What we've been doing in our society of culture, in hip hop itself, has been miraculous. Nothing else compares to the culture of what we've offered the world via the United States as our community grows. And as we diversify into fashion, into all the aspects of art in and of itself, you know, that pressure for the bottom line dollar at a corporation on an executive is beyond belief. Like, I challenge anybody to go take the job of an A&R person, because prior to me being a manager, that's the job I did. So in the realm of artist development, people don't even know that A&R stands for artist and repertoire, meaning you're dealing with the artist and you're dealing with the repertoire that the artist has to deal with, and you're the voice, you're the translator. You're the person that the company looks at and says, what's the bottom line here? Why are we subject to give this artist a negotiation north of 7 figures? And you better be able to say why. You have to be able to speak to that language of corporate America. And a lot of times, most of those people didn't come from corporate anything. You know, they're not college educated. You know, fortunately enough, we are here to have this discussion, and we're here to have an opportunity to open this platform for the audience to see that the change is now, that the opportunity is now. We have to figure ourselves out and do it ourselves, because, as you said earlier, you know, as some black men sitting up on this panel, we've changed the definitive of what it is that corporate America looks at and says, oh, you're independent, so we have to meet and match funds. So we know the business acumen, we know how to get out there and go for it. And part of that is coming from the grind, and it almost just juxtaposes us to a positioning that we don't know how to actually speak through it. But we've learned. And 30 years later, I think you've learned a couple of things, Blue. You know what I'm saying? It's safe to say that we've all learned a couple of things through that time. And I look up and I say, I'm proud of a lot of the artists on the other side that are making inroads and that are doing things that are spectacular. Nick, you are a prime example of taking it and going forward and making it happen and speaking truth to power.
Appreciate you.
No, we watch. You know, we don't have to
get
be
close. Fired sometimes, but
he goes left.
Gets them fired sometimes.
But you know, it goes without saying we're dealing in art, and there's no guarantees in a business that we make guarantees out of. So a lot of people don't get that part. And so to sit here and say, oh, I got it all figured out tonight, not necessarily the case. But what I've personally been doing is taking baby steps to learn from the best qualifiers, to sit through those lessons of life and say, oh, is this how it was going down in R&B music in the 80s? This is what we need to change over here a little bit. And then walk into an office and be able to speak truth to power to anybody and make it make sense. Because I think what got lost in translation was there was a whole sector of music that switched. Now we are in a whole nother sector of music that switched. And we used to make jokes about how our parents was like, oh, we don't want to listen to that. Get out of here with that.
Right.
Now we don't want to listen to that.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I'll say this, for art, it may not be my cup of tea, but that don't mean it's bad. And the money you're making from it, let's figure out how to invest back in us. Let's figure out how to get it back in motion.
Because that's one thing that we can say, and however it's evolved and, you know, so many have paved the way, the amount of money that is being made right now in the music industry is tremendous. You know.
Want to talk about it? Now that's a conversation we never speak on.
Yeah.
How much?
I mean,
give me a number, Nick. Come on.
I'm not speaking of mine personally.
No.
But I'm just,
if we say that the United States has one thing to offer in terms of the world, what do we usually say?
Our export.
Our export is what?
Entertainment.
Our culture. So let's break it down. If our culture is the export, what is the culture? I'll wait.
It's us. It's hip hop. Hip hop is a universal language.
Wow. And if hip hop is the culture that's the export of the United States of America, you're in Africa looking at America. You're in Europe looking at America. You're in Asia looking at America. What is it that you see?
Hip hop.
I hear a lot of hip hop on commercials.
What's the value?
What do they use to sell those products?
Don't worry, I'll wait. What's the value? Nobody wants to talk about what we're worth.
It got to be trillions. If we
Gotta be
Start.
trillions. Gotta be
Please speak
trillions.
to it.
It has
Speak
to
to it
be.
and through it.
Just based off of when you think about these giant corporations, from these soft drinks to these
They know.
automotive companies.
They know a number.
Every commercial you watch got a
Nick,
they got that beat behind it
they have a number.
because they know the pulse of what it is.
I mean, what's Universal going for? What's the sale?
They have a number. I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it because we're talking about mental health and wellness. Price Waterhouse Cooper. Hit me on my Instagram.
But the reason why I even bring up the financial side of it, because we do have to know our wealth, we have to know our value, and we have to know our worth. And that's where it all starts, because as a culture, we know that's what was initially robbed from us. You know what I mean? There's a property mentality that was placed on our community, and it's a property mentality that they don't want to let go. They don't want us to know how much we're worth. They don't want us to know that we are wealth. We don't want to say, and always, as we dive into saying health is wealth, and it goes back to what we can continue to talk about is they always, and just to me, this was something important I felt like we needed to discuss, because we always hear these terms, especially what's going on now is, you know, the black on black crime, and I always say it's not crime. If you actually do want to speak to it, because we know what's going on in our communities. Like I said, we're the ones, we hold space, we document, but they should shift it from black on black crime to black on black trauma. And it's the trauma that has been placed on us. It's the pressure, it's the stigmas of saying, we're gonna put you all in this place. It may not look like it's in a cage, but it clearly is. We gonna step outside and watch you deal with your trauma amongst each other and not offer any help.
And profit off it.
And profit off of it. And then through that, we still prevail. Through that, we have to have we got to understand the resilience. We got to understand the strength in our community, because when you see how the system is set up for us to fail, and never for us to win, but then we do win. We do become the export of the United States. Not obviously entertainment, sports, and all of that, but when I love how you put it, where it's culture. It's our culture. It's what our mamas taught us. It's what our grandfathers established in us. It's our narrative. So I would even say, I mean, going all the way back to the NWA days, and then even, you know, coming from the West Coast, where even during that process of the gangster rap times, and even the times where we've seen, you know, some brilliant, prolific, powerful individuals like the Tupacs, or even Ice Cube, as I say, is one of the greatest storytellers ever. I think they dealt and continue to deal with our trauma, and in a way that they put it on Front Street. They told the world about it, and the system didn't like that. You're a part of that, and can speak to dealing with some individuals. We would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think hip hop culture is all about truth, authenticity, expressed and you know, through our anger in a way, and working with Ice Cube. I mean, and NWA. It was the truth that they wanted to get out there. They wanted to tell what was happening in the streets. And at the end of the day, it was almost exploited to a certain extent. That, you know, it was really about them speaking about things that are happening in the community to themselves. It was almost therapeutic, cathartic in a way, you know. But, you know, working with Priority Records, it jumped off, and then it was just like what you guys are talking about. It's now you're on the train. It's I don't want to say slave mentality, but it was like now we're putting you out there.
Say it.
We're making money off of you, and no one was dealing with the pain. Even the group themselves, even Ice Cube and all this other stuff. You're out there now. You have your pain, but now you're actually making money. But you're still not really healing. But you're educating, and so there is some some power around that because you're educating the community, and actually when it starts to get to the populace, white America, now they have a little bit of insight of what's happening to a certain extent. But you know, it was I don't want to say difficult, but it was challenging, you know, and we're speaking the truth, and I came in when we were being censored, you know. We were being shut down because we have transitioned into popular America. Now my kid is, you know, it was all cool and when it was down in the streets, but now like it's being played in high schools and all this other stuff. We don't want to hear that, you know what I mean? So we want to put a lockdown on that. And it was interesting going through that process and seeing how all of a sudden there was a shift when white America was embracing it when it was this small little in this corner. And now that it blew up, and now we're touring and all this other stuff, now they want to put a lockdown on it. And people, you know, when I talk about hip hop and culture, we have to go back to the 13th Amendment. We really like to talk about that, which, you know, we just celebrated Juneteenth, right? Free, and I always say that slavery in back in modern times, I mean, you know, back in history was an iteration of free labor. Let's call it what it is. And the 13th Amendment is really about a new iteration of how do we spin that, you know what I mean? So the 13th Amendment, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it basically
It
says
ain't ended, they amended it.
yeah. And so, you know, it's like, you know, slavery is abolished unless you are punished by crime. And so what they did, Jim Crow law started, you know, popped up and all these other things. The same thing and so I felt that same feeling being on tour when we were trying to get shut down and saying, you can't perform this song, you can't perform this stuff. It was like they were trying to put something on us to charge us for a crime in order to make us wrong for speaking the truth.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, and I mean, you touch on that. I mean, and I you know, like I said, I talk about everything, so forgive me if I go too far. But to your point, we hear these rumors, and you guys have been in the game for a long time. And we hear that, as artists, we hear this now to this day, that it's designed for us to fail. And going back to when we talk about, I don't even talk about the school to prison pipeline. I talk about the cradle to prison pipeline. From once a young black man is born, they have statistics and actually math equations based off of how they score in standardized testing of how many prisons to actually build. Yep. So in that, I've heard that there were rumors in the 90s that those infrastructures, those big business places that were building these privatized prisons and institutions, that they knew the power and the influence of hip hop, and they encouraged and wanted to actually hear more gangster rap. They wanted to hear more demise and less conscious rap. And they were saying, we don't want you guys to be signing no more Public Enemies and De La's and Far Sides. We want more shoot 'em up, kill, bang, bang. And then when you look at hip hop today, it's shoot 'em up, kill, bang. Like, it's literally rappers saying, I gotta go kill somebody so I can get a record deal. How many bodies they can, like, that's what that birthed. If that was true, it definitely worked.
I want to say something real quick, Blue, because, you know, I came from the East Coast, and when I was working with NWA, Ice Cube, and Easy, and all that other stuff, I had education, like, from Jump Street, when we were dealing with undercover LAPD that was working for us, that was telling us the game, like telling us basically how they mark drug dealers' relatives.
Wow.
As they're coming out, they put a rap on them. You know what I mean? And so to get them into the system so that they have no other opportunity but to either turn to the drug game or, you know, do some sort of crime. And so they put them in the system. And when you are, it's called institutional betrayal trauma. When you're in that type of system, you lose hope as an individual. You know what I mean? So they're literally, and, you know, from an industry standpoint too, I can vouch for, yes, it was encouraged because it was making money. And I've heard all the rumors about, you know, government.
Secret meetings.
Yeah, secret meetings and all this other stuff. I've seen documentaries around it. that it was true that this was going to not only make money, but also be able to give people rap sheets and all this other stuff to get, at the end of the day, what is it? Free labor.
Wow.
It's free labor.
I'm going to take a stab at this, though, and just come from a different angle. Those rumors are true in the sense that big companies own the labels. Big companies also are invested in the prison industrial system. So it's not necessarily like in L.A. Reid or Clive Davis never told any of my artists to rap a certain way.
Right.
Part of where this goes back down to the damaged mental health that we have as a people was they didn't have to really shove us that way. Once the door was open, we were so mentally off kilter that we were happy to run through these doors and rap about this. Wasn't somebody? Yeah, our trauma naturally kicked in, but it goes back to what you said earlier. You can't health is wealth, right? So you associate that if you're healthy, you're wealthy. So let's take mental health and wealth. As Black people, we've never had a healthy relationship with money. So how are we? So even as we chase wealth, we're not fixing our mental health.
Speak on it.
So we're not, the money that we're chasing, the money that we think when we get this record deal, we get all this, we get all that. The reason why so many of us fumble it is because it's not health. It's not because we don't have a healthy relationship with money.
Right.
As a people.
Wow.
Our money leaves our community faster than anyone else in the world.
Wow.
We have no abilities. We don't reinvest in ourselves. There's so many things that we could go into, but the reality is that due to the damages that we face from slavery, from systematic, from everything, we don't have a healthy relationship with wealth. So our mental health is always going to be a struggle until we kind of fix that.
The financial literacy aspect of it.
That's where we have to start. Because artists get money and they blow it, and we've all blown it. Nick, you've blown it.
Several times.
That's what I'm saying.
You have to blow it. You have to blow it to know
You
it.
have to blow it to learn.
So I want to pick up where you are going with this, because I think it's really interesting, and we have a diverse group of individuals here that are all in one through thread. That thread is, as we talk about gangster rap in LA, remember that there was a very big hippie health and wellness thing growth in Los Angeles. Remember that there was Good Life Cafe. Remember that there was Dr. Sebi.
Yeah, of course. Talk about it.
And for those that know, we had to be in a position to look. I was an intern at the Museum in Black in Leimert Park. Nobody was in Leimert Park except for drug addicts and, people who swore that it was going to turn back around and had a vision for it. And if you thought about turnaround, Juneteenth happened in Leimert Park past 3 years consecutively during COVID. And I mean, it's beautiful.
Truly.
It's creating an opportunity for us to embrace this mental wellness and one with self with growing as entrepreneurs. And I support that. I step into the realm of being a self-starter and trying to help others who are also restaurateurs, fashionistas, people who are in the music business. It's imperative for them to diversify and grow as well. But I want to also kind of loop us right back into the health and wellness beginning with, the things that we put into ourselves, our spiritual balance. I'm a member of an ongoing church. I go to Agape. I'm with Reverend Michael Beckwith on a regular basis. So, to see the family engage and watch him marry family members and talk him into it because he ain't. I ain't gonna put him on Front Street like that, but and then being taught by Dr. Sebi how to know that mucus and curement of the gut is going to be a big battle coming. COVID. My godmother couldn't be with us today, due in fact to health-related issues of COVID, and unfortunately, we're right in the moment. They think that a world war is all about guns, when in fact it's in health and spiritual wellness. And I feel like we have a hold on it. I feel like we actually have inroads to get to the other side of the what if. And, there are definitely select individuals that are amongst us that are piercing through the corporate veil financially. I'm not gonna say no names, but I will also say that those same individuals are also seriously in need of the support, in as much as the ones on the come up, because it's like,
It's new territory.
unfortunately, everybody can't go. I always say to artists around me, I was like, okay, you don't want it? We all can't work on the register. Somebody got to work fries, but be really, really good at it. Be really, really, I don't want to eat French fries, but I'm saying the mentality of the McDonald's corporate growth. Us as an environment, it's never white versus black versus brown with me. It's about our hearts, our spirits, you know. And I want to grow that as we're gonna be on the same side of the fence once we figure out we're not the only ones here. We're gonna eventually marker ourselves to say, oh, we can do a group hug now because the Martians are here.
Right.
They've been here. We can't say something that don't exist, that don't happen. Big Boy talks about so much important information in his music. I challenge anybody to take rap lyrics and dissect them down. Like, I'm sorry, it's not too many new rappers that I can go through lyrically, pound for pound, and just remember. But I remember once upon a time, I knew the lyrics to Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, De La.
They got some young cats that's going right now.
I would say Kendrick Lamar.
J. Cole.
Sure. I'm not gonna run from them.
Herbo,
I'm not gonna run from them. I just don't personally listen a long enough time to get embedded in that. And I was gonna go back to the code of what we learned listening to our legendary hip hop artists. What we learned was not just their stories, but we learned how to put the application of that into real time for us. I loved wearing an Africa medallion.
Yeah.
You know, but
so much influence.
And all we have to do is follow the yellow brick road. Certain ones, to this day, how is Big no longer with us and Pac no longer with us, but these breadcrumbs? Have you? They left breadcrumbs.
That's powerful too, and even going back because where they got it from. Like when you think about, you know, Big's mom, her Jamaican roots, which is, you know what I mean, Pac's mom being a Panther, you know what I mean, and the things that those women instilled into their sons and where it all came from. So it's, and like you talk about these breadcrumbs, it's like now to this day and everything, you know, when, you know, the travesty that we're all experiencing with the Supreme Court and you know, that process of like, this has been a consistent message.
You saw it. You saw it as well. It's broad daylight.
Yeah.
When he was in office, he did what he had to do to create this now narrative.
Exactly.
The false sense of reality was that he needed to be sitting in the seat to make anything happen.
But now that, like you said, it's the culture's opportunity. It's the young artists that have this opportunity in the same way that young artists and culture was speaking up in the 60s, in the 70s. It's that paradigm shift that's occurring again. And I'm inspired when I see the people in the streets. I'm inspired when I saw the people in the streets in 2020. I was, you know what I mean? Like, because that's how change occurs and that's how you butt up against the system. And there's nothing like the vibration of the music, the culture of the energy speaking truth to power, as you say it. So as we see this, and I want to bring it back to what you were saying too, Blue, because one thing that's different now, at least from my aspect, and you said this a little bit too, financially, it's just more money in the world. We dealing with cryptocurrency. We dealing
streaming.
With there's more billionaires now than ever before. So we have more money to play with, per se, to make a change, to implement, you know, the hip hop museums to show the culture. There's real estate to be bought. There's things to go back and pay our respects to the legends and the OGs that gave us the opportunities to be the millionaires that we are. But that's that reciprocal process of saying that's how you heal. That's where we put our money. Is there a process? Is there an answer to say, all right, you just gave this kid $1 million, and now he has $3 million magically around his neck, and you just instantly put him in debt? But is there a way? Like, can we shift. I just saw something. It was I believe it's Meek Mill's new artist or something. I just saw online where he was saying like he didn't go buy a chain right away because his grandma's still on dialysis. And he was like, "Why would I spend $50,000 on a chain when I can spend $30,000 to help get my?"
What's his name?
I didn't see. It was Meek Mill's artist.
I got you. We need his name. I love that.
But I'm just in that process. That's mental health. That's a process of saying that's a wise person, because we're taught to say as soon as you get a record deal, you go get the chains, you go get the cars, you go buy your homeboy some guns, you know what I mean? Like, and when the idea of it is like, no, let's invest in us, let's invest in our communities, let's invest in our mental health.
But I think that comes from two problems that we're having. One is that as a culture and as a country, we minimize that voice who says something logical, and we increase the voice, we amplify the goofiness that people are doing out there. It's like we have gotten to a place where we reward mediocrity. Yes. That is our problem. So you also cannot mentally grow if we're allowing the mediocre to be the standard. So as a people, mentally, look, there's no way we get fixed as a people. There's absolutely no way we get fixed if we are the only people that still allow all of our music not to have any love in it. We have no love. We have no.
Say it again,
we're not
Come
teaching anything. We're not. Our music has become our main toxic product.
When it used to be full of love.
It used to be love. It used to be education. I was so disappointed during the pandemic and the Trump years because I grew up on Cedric Avenue in the Bronx. I'm the most hip hop of I literally grew up where hip hop started. It's the block I'm from, Cedric Avenue. All right, so literally, I know the messages that I used to get from hip hop. When NWA was teaching, you had the message. When NWA was teaching us, they were teaching us about what life was like on the West Coast, but also what we were all dealing with it. When those artists used to come, these days,
you say, "Fuck the police." Everybody's like,
"Yeah, that works." I'm not with them. I don't like them either. But now it's the same repetitive message. Even the singers that we put out. Summer Walker's a winner, and I love her talent, but she's toxicity. We don't control enough of the outputs. We don't control what the narrative is going to be. So if you're not controlling what you're putting into the community because you don't control the narrative, then it becomes even harder to start to fix mental health. And so panels
I gotta defend the artist for a second, Blue Guy, because I put some toxic shit out there too.
Hold on a second. Well, we have a panel to speak on it. So
I love Summer Walker and that toxicity.
How much art exists? Let's get to the math again. It all drives back to mathematics with
balance.
me.
There's lack of balance.
How much art exists in the world, right? If you look at the world as just infinite amount of openness, and you say, well, we barely got a pinch of. Take all art, all sports and entertainment, take everything and understand that it goes like that fast when it comes and it goes. Meaning when you are trying to get people to consume what you put out there
and pay attention,
that process is it's like lightning. We're seeing lightning fast activities go right before our eyes, and so there's not enough art. The toxics, for me, when I'm listening to something that's toxic, we can make a choice.
You turn it up.
That's what we're doing. That's why music from the 80s and 90s is really the biggest genre right now, because a lot of us are making the choice to turn it off. The problem is we've also let them create a narrative where those artists that we love from there are now legends or old. Like we don't even.
We still call them legends.
Yeah, but they're 42. How did you become a legend at 40? Not that
where is the work? Where is the work? Who's the greatest songwriter that we have that's alive and well, touring right
Drake?
now, making it happen? No.
Mariah Carey.
Greatest. Greatest. You gotta say certain things, right? Yo. The fortunate thing is we have people like Stevie Wonder.
Facts. Still with us. The closest thing to God. That man is amazing.
Wait. So you know where I was gonna go.
I'm sorry.
Greatest.
I had a layup. I missed the layup. He was alley-ooping me to say Smokey Robinson.
Smokey Robinson.
Yes. And in it, putting him in a room with Dre and saying, I know I don't gotta worry about where the love is gonna be, what's gonna happen in this room. I did a blue. I walked out. And he was just like, hey, you leaving? I was like, well, you know, Alchemist did the beat. Dre's over here. You're there. And this Anderson guy is going to do the rest. Watch what happens. And you can leave situations that are going to lead to greatness and not trip. But I did that as an exercise to try to see how we can get our greatest to come back to
It's those breadcrumbs you was talking about.
man, these are tools we have access to. We can get in the mix with right here in the now. That's why when I was asked to participate in a panel of this discussion, I said, "Oh, we're in the now with that." I've been working with artists that try to maneuver me to get them the insurance from the label off top. I was like, "Rifkin, we got to give insurance to this guy." He's like, what we got to do is shut up talking about that. Right. No shade to Steve, because he at least heard me out. He at least said, you know, yeah, that sounds good, Adrian, but what's your plan? And he forced my hand. And I've never been hurry up and let's wait. I said, okay, well, let me call SAG after and let's see what we can do over here. And they were like, well, we don't exactly have that set up for you if you're not a member. But if you're a member, I was like, well, what does it take to be a member, I wonder? And that's what started us flipping it right back around and saying, oh, this is an offering we just aren't taking advantage of, artists.
And I mean, just in the same way, like that's where we're sitting here in the Recording Academy, an academy built to protect and provide for artists. And the fact that we're having the mental health conversation in this space, I mean, there's so one, you know, anybody's watching this, anyone's here, there are, you know, processes that, you know, there's organizations that are built for the artists and that you can find through the Recording Academy. But the infrastructure and what you speak of like where the SAG or an AFTER is set up to where everything from insurance, pension plans.
MusiCares. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
I was adding
because as we know, not even just in our culture, but just for artists, it's difficult being an artist. You know what I mean? We wired differently. You know what I mean? And just this business in itself, where to be able to live your life just full of expression and your purpose to emote. There's some instability there. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And Blue, you said something super powerful. And sitting in the Grammy Museum here with the Recording Academy to say we reward or award even mediocrity. In that sense, how important is accolades? How important for your mental health is to be acknowledged as an artist, to understand that your gift, that you should it be uplifted in the process of something like a Grammy being the competition, something to work for, something when you lose that night, or when your project doesn't get nominated. I mean, Blue, I know you don't lose. You done got, I mean, I know y'all got several Grammys. I ain't got none.
Coming up, Nick. Coming up.
But, I mean, you guys have been on those stages. I mean, I have a vivid memory of seeing you, L.A., and all of them, like, all of Atlanta on the stage winning that Grammy of the Year. But there's many times that I know that you didn't get nominated for a phenomenal album, or your artist didn't win, and it's devastating to a point so where it can be a detriment. And as we sit in a place that rewards and awards artists for their art, can we speak to that other side? One, how important is that, and what is the mental health? How do you check that when your art isn't acknowledged at the highest level?
So I've managed a lot of artists over the years. I've been blessed to
It's him speaking to me because I get mad every time I don't
every
get
time
nominated.
you ain't nominated. It becomes a management of expectations. I think that your mental health today, being a manager, is so much different than it was in the 90s and early 2000s, because social media has opened up an entire different, like,
It's a
almost
low
a whole
frequency.
different,
It's a low
it
frequency.
changes so much, because, you know, I've seen artists get on stage and rock 50,000 people and be in a great mood and everything be good.
And one
we get
tweet.
in the car and they read that 320-second comment that's negative, and their whole mood changes. Now, Listen, the police complain about not being mental health people. That's not what they're here to do. And they get sent on. Well, managers, no one teaches us how to be mental health experts. My mother was a principal in the South Bronx, for 25 years. So I've learned some mental health from watching her deal. So you learn that you have to teach your artists how great it is to get these accolades, but don't put so much weight on it that when you don't, you feel like you're a failure. Yeah. Because that's unfortunately what happens when you have an award. It's someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. And now we're 30 years into participation trophies. If you learned how to lose when you were a kid, you know how to lose as an adult. But if since the 7 years old, you've been getting a participation trophy.
I got a house full of them.
See?
You sign your kid up for Little League, they automatically get a trophy.
That's it. But you got to learn. I think mental health from a management standpoint also, and these young managers out here that are trying to manage, you have to learn to manage the expectations of your clients, and you have to be prepared to, like, being a manager also means seeing around the corner. He's working with Scarface and NWA and people. He knew Fuck the Police was going to be a problem. They were going to have to deal with. When the first time you heard it, you knew it was going to be a problem. When you hear records, you hear your artists doing things, you see your artists doing things. As a manager, you have to get ahead of it. Yeah. You have to start. I've had arguments with artists that I've tried to get to go see therapy because I see the anger. I see how much they're trying to manage it with liquor and drugs and weed and everything.
Numbing.
And that's really numbing it. And that's what makes the labels so bad, because the labels have always given us drugs. They've always given us access to things. They've given us the money. Cadillac Records was about, forget that with your wives. Go get another Cadillac. You'll be all right. That mentality has stopped us from addressing the problems early on. And so when people lose, I watched Lil Nas X a couple of weeks ago go off on BET because he didn't get nominated. But dude, they awarded you for Old Town Road 2 years ago. A year ago, they let you perform. And now this year, because you're not nominated, you're going to diss BET? That's mental health. You don't understand that we win and we lose with style and with class and a certain grace. But that's what we're missing, and we have to start to figure out how to give that back.
Guidance. We need guidance. We need the elder statesmen to explain that to us, because we are emotional beings as artists. We are people who we hurt different. We feel passionately. It's intense. So I ask this question to all of you, and this is let me get on the therapy couch for a minute. What are those signs? What do you see? Like, you spoke earlier, like seeing an artist be burnt out, or even what like you just say. Like, what are the signs? What do you say to someone who is experiencing a creative slump, or being ridiculed in social media for their art or their lifestyle or whatever that is? I mean, because when you speak of a brother like Lil Nas X, who I commend, who I'm a super fan of, I'm like, man, the pressure on that brother gotta be insane. You know what I mean? Like, what's going through his mind daily? One, to go literally from overnight online to not only one of the biggest stars in music, but then as a purveyor and flag holder of his community. That level of pressure has to be insane. And we watch even great artists before him have to go through. We watch the Michael Jacksons, we watch the Whitney Houstons, we watch all of these people, and we soaked up all of their entertainment. But were there people that were there to say, you know what, I'm witnessing the burnout. Let me take you over here. I'm witnessing the pain that's being caused by influence. I'm witnessing the hurt when you lose not just an award, but just the passion when you lose the magic for that album or the next album, and you start to believe the negativity that's perpetuated on you, and you get in that, because the thing about a low frequency is heavy to get out of. It's you get stuck down there, and you most of the time can't get out of a low frequency by yourself. You need high frequencies to pull you out. So how do you see, what are the signs, and then how do you help somebody in that scenario?
I can tell you, outside of music.
You see any signs in me? No.
It's going off slightly off topic, but also to bring it back is, so I also work in the cannabis industry.
Oh, that's the answer?
But through legislation, through social equity programs, right? And our company, what we do is we work with our marginalized individuals, and our platform and our principles are around trauma, from day one. So we create a safe space to actually deal and talk and discuss about emotional trauma, which I do believe, if you really break down what mental health is, to me, it's systemic epigenetic trauma, which is, if you break that down, it's an emotional trauma. And if you break that down even further, it's a neurological and biological change in the body that leads to stress and fear. So when we talk about burnout, it's an elevated, if we want to get really, really deep, it's an elevated nervous system that you go into your fight or flight, that you're staying in your fight or flight, and you're looking for defenses all the time. And you can't really relax. And what people don't realize is when you're in fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex detaches. You become dysregulated, and you're really more in your limbic system. You're in your mammal and your reptilian brain.
You're talking that talk right now. You're talking that talk right now.
And so what we do is we educate. We basically, bring in professionals, and we were awarded 22 licenses to create opportunities for entrepreneurships for marginalized individuals. And the principles that we taught them was emotional trauma. How do you deal with it? More importantly, creating that space for it and creating strategies on how to deal with the inner battles between our thoughts, our emotions, and the stories that we tell ourselves that lead to, that are basically caused by these hidden core beliefs at the subconscious level. People don't realize that we're all up here with our emotional trauma, but it's really in the body. It's a somatic thing. And so we teach you, when you educate them on how to really be successful and how to start to develop emotional stability, agility, so that they can actually live productive and, more importantly, happy lives.
Wow.
So.
There's definitely some answers in there.
I think if we're going to go back to you.
We've had many of these conversations in private.
Yes, I think using you as an example, I think that knowing that as great a host you are, as great as a person, and just your natural disposition in life, you also can look at how you cope with failures. Instead of it crushing you, and not saying you don't have hard days and you don't get overwhelmed, it fuels you.
Facts.
When they tell you can't do something, you're like, now I'm gonna do it even more, and I'm gonna do it better, and I'm gonna do it. Oh, y'all wanna fire me from this? I'm gonna make this show #1, and like that. So that's how you turn your traumas into. But anyone that's really followed you, going back to, when you talked about your brother and you and your mother's relationship, and on your records, and her not having an abortion, technically from there we could see your family's desires, like how you would want a family of your own and do this. So I think
big one.
I think if you pay attention to your clients and you see how they deal with adversity as you're working with them even early on, it can become a projector. And then as managers, and what even executive managers, look, the voices around you that encourage you to do goofy shit are going to be louder than the people that are trying to get you to do healthy shit. Yes, man. Unfortunately, the yes men outweigh those of us that are like, yeah, man, I don't know if we need to spend $50,000.
And as artists, we want to listen to the yes men. We like the people that's going like this. We don't listen to the people that's doing that.
Exactly wrong.
And you told someone, you'd be like, he's not going to listen to me this time. But hopefully what happens is, as an artist like yourself, you stumble a couple of times, and then you start, as a man, you write yourself. And you start to deal with it as men do. You start to address it, and you speak on it, and you find your truth. The problem with hip-hop and the culture of music is that a lot of times artists have to find themselves in that spotlight.
Yeah, and sometimes it's too late, because then we're ridiculed based off and then one of the brothers is one of the most amazing spirits I've ever seen. But to your point, to witness DMX
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like how passionate, brilliant, just amazing how he changed the world with his words. But we had to watch it in real time while he was in the spotlight.
That's the fear. That's the fear I have of a Kanye. That's the fear I have. I was partners with Chris Lighty. Chris Lighty's legendary manager. Chris,
Facts.
Tribe Called Quest, 50,
Rest in
Violator,
power.
a legend in the game. But you know, I'm gonna flip it too and be honest right now. Being a manager is a shit job. Like
Thankless.
it's like you're the first person they blame. You're the last person they thank. We live with PTSD because your relationship with artists is we build you up for you to fire us. Because some random person met you and told you that
They could do a better job.
They could do a better job than you.
I never fired you, Blue.
No, you never. You
still got the agreement.
Thank you. Yes, even when I'm fired by everybody else, I can always be like, Nick, what we doing today? I'm gonna come hang out.
Hilarious.
We'll find a check, though. Don't worry about it.
Hilarious. Well, when you do the check business, you know how to do it no matter if they fire you or not. So the reality is that 9 times out of 10, when you get hired by an artist, they don't know how to fire you for real. They don't know how to get out the deal for real. I got artists been signing me for 15 years. I got artists been signing me for a long time.
They don't
and
even
I'm just
know.
like, all right, then, whatever. God bless. You know, I want to say that because we are all intertwined and connected, that it is a family affair. I look at this as a family, and people say, don't do business with your friends. No. Well, I don't know who to do business with. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do business with people I actually like. And then that person in turn potentially could like me. Because I was raised by a beautiful black woman that got it. And she taught me from day one, give it up to Joyce, love her with all her life.
Shout out to Joyce.
But not much different than a lot of us raised by single black women,
Yeah,
period.
indeed.
So I had an opportunity to know harmony in my life. Don't let anybody get in the way of my joy. And you shut up. You don't got all the answers, Miller. Sit down and shut up and get the answers. Get the encyclopedia, figure it out. Ask somebody, figure it out. And when I started doing that, I was finding mentors. And when I found mentors, I found some people to tell me, you know, hey, this is how you go about this. This is how you take out the trash. This is how you do push-ups. This is how you man up and learn your boxing regimen, workout, and et cetera, so on and so forth. So naturally, as a manager, I went to people I felt like had it all figured out, you know. So shouts out to Stephen Rifkin and Paul Stewart and Benny Medina and et cetera, so on and so forth. I actually sought those individuals out to get that knowledge that I didn't know if I had in me or not. And when I realized I had something that was of an offering, then I sought out artists. Well, at that time, artists were seeking me out because people say, well, how did you discover Anderson .Paak and this and that? I'm like, he discovered me. I ain't discover him. And I was just there to be a voice of reason. I don't know anything about being a yes man unless it's right, because you can't tell me, hey, we gonna go left all day long. Nah, you can go left all day long. I'm gonna be over here trying to do it right, because I want people to know what I know. I don't have a problem sharing, because to me that is caring. That's actually, that illustrates somebody who cares enough, and that is a great manager is somebody like what you and Eric do when you care. And you give not 100% of yourself, 1,000% of your time and energy. And then that, in fact, I know you see it. I know you see it because I see y'all relationship. So it's never a moment where a smart person, artist or individual that runs a corporation is going to look and see somebody that can help them and say, well, I don't want your help.
Right.
So I think that's helpful.
So much wisdom on this stage, and we'd be remiss to. I keep seeing hands go up and wanting to comment. I feel like we in church. I don't know if y'all testifying. Y'all got.
We are in church.
Yeah, y'all got something to say, but we do want to take this time in the panel to offer up any questions or comments from our audience. Your hand has been up the entire time, man. Please share your name and your statement or question.
Hello, can you hear me? Oh,
yes.
Yes. Hi. Of course. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Nakia Fields, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Thank you so much for having me on the VIP mental health panel. It's been so enlightening to hear your guys' perspective on being behind the scenes for artists. I want to share a little bit about my perspective of being witness in the room as a mental health professional. So I'm a registered play therapist, and I have a credential to work in schools. So for the past 14 years, I've been witness to so much pain. And as a Black female provider out there, I've been witness to Black families being intentionally oppressed in school systems, across the board in the healthcare systems, and mental health professionals are being oppressed. We are not able to start our businesses and hire and workforce development to be able to fit the need that's happening. So what I'm hearing here is arts are a way to change the narrative. Art is a way to tell the truth. Art is a way to fight back. Art is a way, and especially hip hop, in play therapy, a lot of times one of the prompts I give to teenage boys or girls, no matter what the ethnicity, is to write a rap. This is narrative therapy. This is poetry. This is how we express that anger is valid, that sadness is valid. You know, sometimes you be in the car, you put that song on, and you just go with them lyrics. You know, Tupac, Keep Your Head Up. Got some Biggie. Even if it's the most angry music out there, it's okay. It's valid, because that's how you're feeling in that moment. And I think that a lot of what we need to continue talking about is access. Why is mental health so inaccessible to us? Why is it so hard for a mental health practice provider to provide the service? Why is it so hard for the insurance company to offer the service and pay for the service and reimburse the professional? It's intentional, because
Totally
mindset is power. Mental health is power. You are empowered when you can make healthy decisions, when you can ingest the right social media content, the right music when you're ready for it. First of all, if you're not aware that you're mentally ill, then you're not going to do anything different. And if you're not aware that you're unsafe, so in order to be mentally well and able to be powerful with your wellness, you have to notice that you are powerful enough to make impact. And I think that's where we are today, is bringing awareness to people that mental health is how we take our power back. And when we are not feeling well, we reach out, we talk to people, we make music, and we talk about it, and we let them learn the language of how to be angry and be sad, or be happy, or be joyful. So thank you so much. I am here. Let's keep talking. Nakia Fields from the Black Mental Health Task Force.
Can I say something?
Let's do
Absolutely.
I want to touch on what you said and what you said about low frequency, right?
Yes.
And so what we need to do is we need to educate everybody, and this may shock everybody, but every single person in this room has emotional trauma, whether you realize it or not. And so we need to remove the stigma of shame that binds our emotional trauma. So, you know, when we talk about low frequencies, what emotional trauma does, in a technical term, we lose our psychological safety. And what that does is we have fear of rejection at the end of the day, fear of criticism. So we're not able to really voice what's going on. We lose our authenticity. And at the end of the day, we start to get in this loop of vulnerability, which is feeling shameful, feeling fear, feeling pride, especially in the Black community. Pride is, and the other thing is guilt. So those, if you look at the consciousness chart, those are the four lowest consciousness, lowest vibration that you will have that does not support life. They're called destructive thought patterns. And at the end of the day, all of us have it. Is when we have what I say is the three enemies to success is anytime that you doubt yourself, anytime you have indecisions, and anytime you live in fear. And so every single one in this room has dealt with that, which means that you have emotional trauma, which means that you are in your ego and you're reacting to things. And what we teach is we teach people to be responsible, as Tony Robbins says, response-able, so that when you talk about what's been priming situations that make you go off and make you go from 0 to 100, that's priming, that's in your environment. And your behavior is a byproduct of your history, your birth lottery, whatever it is, your disposition plus your current environment. And what people don't realize is that emotional trauma lays dormant. And so if you are put in an environment that reminds you of some shit that happened in the past, you go off. And so we need education around that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got any other comments, questions, statements?
I want to say again, though, just reiterate, I think that, and I'm calling on it, and I'd like everyone to call on it. Help us make these labels be more accountable. Make these labels implement some type of training to teach these artists how to handle their money, how to handle the fame, or even if you don't teach them that, just provide a place where an artist can call and feel safe to talk. And it's not going to get used against them.
We need to make them accountable. Stay on that one.
Let's just make them all accountable and make them start to put some money back into their own communities, because part of the funding of mental health, all of our communities need mental health services in there. So when Universal Music Group gets sold for $3.5 billion, $1 trillion, or whatever the deal is, they should be able to take some of that money, peel it off, and put these clinics in the major urban communities where their artists are all coming from.
Didn't they do that? Didn't they do? Wait. Didn't everybody do this during BLM month?
No. They posted about
they
it.
were going to donate money.
They posted about it.
Can I say this, though? It's not. I wouldn't put it in the healthcare system, because the healthcare system to me is corrupt. If you don't fall in a certain bucket, you can't get treatment. And so it's run by insurance companies and it's run by big pharma. And so at the end of the day, healthcare is profitable. And they say, oh, you got anxiety? Oh, it's covered by your insurance, and we make payment. We can get paid off of it. So take this pill. Oh, you got depression. Oh, it's covered by this insurance. Oh, and we get paid off of it. So take this pill. And so I would say, going back to what we need to do is we need to have the labels invest in, I look at Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant had a mindfulness coach. We need stuff like that. At the end of the day, we look at artists and we put this support system around them, right? You got to have a great lawyer for your business affairs. You got to have an accountant for your financial, right? Why not have a mindfulness coach, right? Mindfulness coach it taught Kobe Bryant mental fortitude, and it pushed him out of his comfort zone so that he went from good to great, and he went from really, going back to technical, it stretched his window of tolerance and allowed him to really be able to deal with a lot of adversities. And what people don't realize is that our adversities allow us to grow. We grow from our adversities.
No one has ever heard of a mindfulness coach. We call them preachers. And you got to go to church to see them. So a lot of us have deleted the church out of our life. God is out of our life. I'm not going to not say it. It's elevated to the conversation of where we're at. Having had an experience with MusiCares, direct and contending with, I had an artist that had a nervous breakdown and was signed to Sony Music, and they didn't know how to go about connecting the dots to help that artist. And I made all the right calls. I thought I was doing all the right things in terms of finding and figuring, but I was told by an individual at MusiCares, hey, we can really help here. We can step in and be of service. Allow us. And I was like, well, who are you? And they were like, well, we're MusiCares. We're a part of what the Grammy Foundation is about. We're here to help artists. And I said, well, I never even knew you guys existed. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me, maybe a lot of other us don't know that this exists. So it's really important that we are in the area that we're in and the proximity of things that we can do to make real change within and one ourselves. And I'm not suggesting that any and all, but I am suggesting that it starts, and we have the access points. So, yes, Blue, let's hold them accountable. I was making a joke about the BLM thing because people said, oh, we're putting X amount of dollars towards this or that. And I never saw that trickle down. Yeah. I never saw it trickle anywhere. I know personally with Reverend Michael Beckwith, and I'm going to say his name, Omarion, we all did a program during the heart of COVID to raise money for staffers and people who were usually on tour at this point to help them kind of have a little extra. We raised like 50 grand. And that was because we put a program together, a music program for Agape Ministries that Omarion hosted. We did a live stream and took in donations for MusiCares. And it was all in an effort to celebrate the life of Bill Withers as well. So we can do that. And I did it, and I didn't have any kind of mindset except for I just wanted to be of service. Omarion called me like, I want to do a challenge, a lovely day challenge. I was like, we have to put so much more on your challenge. Let's add to it. Let's grow it. Let's be apparent in our provocation and in our intention. And it turned out to be something that Michael Beckwith was like, hey, you want to do more of these? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have time in the day. I really didn't have all the time and energy. I'm trying to have a lot more going on.
It's definitely purposeful, though. We appreciate all of those efforts and anything that can help the fortitude of what we're all, here to discuss today. I believe we have another question.
Yes. Hi, I am Monique Hedman, better known as Dr. Mo.
Dr. Mo.
Nice to meet you all. I represent Hip Hop Public Health. We work with Dougie Fresh, the real legends, Dougie Fresh, DMC from Run DMC, Ashanti, tons of other folks. And we create content to promote health equity by increasing health literacy in our communities. So we have tons of educational content on our website, hhph.org. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. But I just wanted to speak as a family medicine doctor. And I can tell you, I did not go into this field to make money. I went into this field to help our people. That is why I went to medical school, and that's why I'm here. I'm not making a lot of money, but I do this work because I love it and I'm passionate. I want to help our people. I do recognize that there is a lot of distrust in the medical establishment, well-founded distrust, because there's been a lot of injustices that have been committed by the medical establishment towards our people. However, people like myself and our practice, we're trying to figure out how we can bridge that gap. Because what I can tell you is that sometimes people do need medication. We know that, like, oftentimes, depending on the severity of what's going on, psychotherapy with pharmacotherapy oftentimes works better together than they do separately. I just wanted to acknowledge that reality and also just open up the conversation about how can we start to bridge that gap and build that trust, or kind of bridge that gap of distrust in the medical establishment. And then understanding that working with doctors, working with psychotherapists, is just a few different tools in your toolbox to address the mental health needs in our community. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
I've been on a journey for the last couple of, thank you for that, Dr. Wong. And just to add to that, I've been on this journey for a while, since I would say it started 2012, when I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. Kind of took me by some, because I thought I was healthy. I was running and gunning, and wake up to having kidney failure and not really understanding, am I gonna live, am I not gonna live, having pulmonary embolisms, knowing the only thing that will save me is medicine. The only thing that will help me at times is forms of chemo, but always being someone who was established and well planted in the church and faith-based communities and processes, having to understand, like, I'm gonna thank Jesus, but I'm gonna thank these pills too. But then even getting more so when we had the tragic loss of my brother Nipsey Hussle, and even through that process of my journey, through figuring out my own health, he would come and talk to me, and talk about taking care of myself. And we had a lot of conversations specifically around Dr. Sabi. And what he wanted to do, before he passed, was to share that conversation about our community and our faith in the medical system. And through the likes of Dr. Sabi and through this process, we're a couple of years in, we're still in post-production in a documentary specifically about Dr. Sabi and his life and all of his, as a herbalist and his holistic practices for the Black community. And African biomineral process of what, as the way we're designed, and certain things that, you know, our bodies are susceptible to. But in dealing with that, with Big Pharma and dealing with that, it's now transformed, even since COVID, of how our community deals with the medical system. Specifically, whether it's physically, mentally, there is a distrust, and we got to speak to that, because there's ample reasons, everything from Dr. Sims to Tuskegee to the AIDS epidemic. There's so many reasons why our community has to speak to, like, nah, I'm not rocking with that. That's not for me. I'd rather go with what my mama said or what my pastor said, because those are people we trust. But in congruence, we can work together, and I think we need more Dr. Mo's. We need more people to speak. And again, it's a process of conversation amongst community, because then that makes us feel a little bit better when we can see a doctor that looks like us, when we can hear testimonies that where people have prevailed through the process. So, I mean, I'm just, adding to what you're saying, because it's definitely something I've dealt with personally.
Do you have a subscription model base? I'm getting ready to ask all you doctors. You talk a great game, and I love it, but we need to have it tangible, so that I can tell an artist who's buying that gold chain, diamond chain, you know what, you can subscribe to this doctor's program and, put some of that into your own health and wealth so that you can balance the powers.
Some podcasts, a little bit to start. And some books. We need all that.
You got to use social media the same way everybody else does, though, because as people see people that look like themselves, as they hear testimonials. I started dealing with depression in like 2008, 2009, and I started going to therapy, and I quickly realized that me being willing to speak on the struggle was helpful to other brothers that look like me. And so more of us have to be honest about the fact that we are struggling. That and I say a lot of times, it's okay not to be okay. We have a lot of things coming at us every day, especially as black men. Every time we walk out of our houses, it's on and popping. Cops, people, everything. We are public enemy number one out here amongst ourselves and everything else, and that's stressful. And so we're doing drugs, we're chasing women, we're doing a lot of stuff trying to cope, but the reality is we're just not okay. But at the same time, especially in hip-hop, it's not okay not to be okay. Because you feel that people see weakness, that if you're vulnerable. And that vulnerability then you think makes you a target. I'm 6'5", 330 pounds. I'm nobody's target. So I don't have a problem being vulnerable. And my mother taught me that it's okay, it doesn't make you weak. And we have to teach our young people that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to go through problems. And Nick and I have talked about this, and I try and say it. As black people, one thing that we failed ourselves as a community is we have neglected and skipped over the fact that we have a generation of crack babies that have come of age. And comedy, I talk about it, but real talk, like, these are crack babies that are now out here making babies, and so no one has taught them, and no one's teaching the babies, and and by being older now, it's our nature to be like, yeah, that ain't for me, I'm not paying attention to it. But it is, because we all got rich and made money off of glorifying selling drugs. So who were we selling those drugs to? So now you have a generation of those kids that are now growing up, copying what they saw us do, haven't learned anything from us but cribs and whips and floss, and that's what life is all about. So it's on my generation. It's on people like ourselves that have been here to step out, be vulnerable, speak, share our stories, be honest, so that somewhere in there we can get to some of those that are going through it, and we can start trying to help save a generation that technically even we as people have written off.
For the lack of guidance, we need that, indeed. Yes, sir.
Oh, my bad. What a beautiful conversation. First off, hey, everybody, JC Hall. How you doing? Sorry, a little nervous. I'm a hip-hop artist and therapist. I work as a social worker in the South Bronx at a transfer high school, right? So it's for youth who are overaged, undercredited, have fallen behind. So about a decade ago, I built a recording studio in there, a professional studio, basically in an old storage room kids can record, produce, make beats, and as a way to engage in the therapeutic process, to engage them in writing, producing, recording, performing, right? I studied under my late mentor, RIP, right? He first developed hip-hop therapy as a mental health intervention and modality in the mid-90s, right? And not many people know about it, which was going kind of to your point, Adrian, about the importance of spreading awareness about it. And what Dr. Mo said that I think was super crucial, how do you bridge that gap of distrust between the public and mental health professionals, right? And a primary way to do that is to draw the inherent parallels between one's culture and the culture of therapy, right? Which is more traditionally Eurocentric, Western approach, right? What does hip hop and therapy have in common? They're both expressive practices, right, that serve as a form of release as well as connection, working with others. So I think when you can highlight the inherently cathartic components within one's culture, which, like Nick, you said from the beginning, from the jump, it has served as a form of post-traumatic growth. Hip-hop culture was birthed from oppression and has been a way to confront these systemic injustices and to process emotions, to work through things. And so hip-hop therapy basically takes those inherent components and combines it with other well-established therapeutic modalities, music therapy, poetry therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. But what makes hip-hop so special, to your point, Eric, it's so embodied, right? You move when you're rapping, you bop. There's something, in therapy, it's a lot more sitting, either laying on the couch, kind of just talking. And the embodiment, not play therapy, shout out to that. The embodiment is crucial, like you said, because you were talking about the neurophysiological implications, right? You were talking about the neocortex going offline, the brainstem kicking in. And hip-hop is so embodied that it helps us regulate our nervous systems through rhythmic engagement, right? Whether it's through the movement, the rapping, the rhythm embedded within the words themselves, as a way to kind of tap in, calm down our nervous systems, and then potentially tap into those more cognitive processes where we can now tell our stories, reconnect with others, talk about our traumas, engage with others, and relate.
Meditative mantras that we all repeat.
100%.
Blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Like just things that we just naturally say that actually, build our spirit up. I mean, that goes all the way back to Negro spirituals and things that just, that's where hip hop is birthed. We say, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Like we've all said that. We've all felt that. And it's just stuff that's embedded into us. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Any more? I think we ain't get anybody in the back.
One in the back.
We can hear you.
My name's Audrey. First of all, I'm so happy to be here, and it's so important to have this. Perfect. My name's Audrey. It's so important to have this conversation about mental health. I'm not in the music world. I'm in the film world, so I'm an upcoming producer and writer. And right before, and I want all of you guys to answer this question because I feel like it's really good for us to reflect and also be vulnerable, like we were talking about, right? So I'm originally from Kenya, and right before I graduated, you don't tell African parents you want to do arts. That just doesn't work. So I ended up doing my business marketing degree, but while I was doing that, I actually created my own project that ended up getting sold and got my first Emmy nomination right before I graduated university.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I just moved out here right after graduating 3 years ago. And, we were told as a community that we have to always work twice as much to get half as much, right? So we're working 4 times as much. Now, with me growing up in an African community, we're working 6 times as much. That's what my mom and dad always told me, right? So I've always had that hustle mentality growing up, and that's how I got to the position I did before, graduating and moving out here. So my question to you, as a person, I ended up getting COVID and was in the hospital for 2 weeks with pneumonia, and I was told 24 hours before I had 24 more hours before I would pass away from COVID and everything. And it made me realize that health really is wealth. And even though we've been told that we should be working 4 times as much to get 100% or 6 times as much to maybe get 150%, we have to understand that. So my question to you guys is, practically in your own life, because we've talked about just the general concept about mental health, how important it is. Practically in you guys' life, what are the things that you guys do to combat burnout and recognize when you're about to hit it? What do you do? Like, for example, my friend and I had a little spa day thing in the morning just to kind of get us fresh and get us ready. So what are some of the things that you guys do to combat burnout? Because it's so real.
Let's talk to the brother who's in the space of cannabis.
All right, well, mine, I'll try to make this kind of quick and not long-winded. So for me, I had a spiritual encounter on Tuesday, October 18th, 2016, that sent me on a journey. And then almost 2 years to the day, on October 16, on a Tuesday, October 16, 2018, I had what is known as a Kundalini break, which is your vagus nerve is our communication highway, and that's where we store all of our emotions. People don't realize that energy can never be destroyed. It's transmuted or transferred, and we transfer it into the body. And when we suppress emotions, it represses in usually ugly ways, maladaptive ways and stuff like that. And so when I had my breakthrough, going back, when I had my spiritual encounter, I was really introduced to love. That's it. It was pure love. The thing that I felt that came over my body was just pure 100% love. No judgment, no nothing or anything like that. Put me down a pathway to really, what people don't realize is when we're grinding, we're really trying to fill this void of lack. And so for me, once I had that encounter, I was worthy. I was love again. And when you are introduced and you feel that again, you realize that we're motivated by two energies, either fear or love. And so for me, when I returned back to love, it just really started me to put in practices where I'm actually moving towards myself. So at the end of the day, when we're living in fear, we're usually escaping. We're doing things to escape ourselves, to avoid. We're doing avoidance behavior. And when we're in the energy of love, we're actually doing things to better ourselves. We're trying to get to our higher version of self. So when I went back to love, that's all I do. So I do priming in the morning. I do what is called water breathing technique. And then I do fire breathing technique. So water breathing technique is the best way to calm your nervous system. So it's 4 breaths in, through the nose, 4 breaths out through the nose. And if you're in a hyper-activated state, it'll bring you down. And if you're in a hypo, like lower state, it'll bring you up. It's your balancing, it's your go-to. And then I do fire breathing, which is really kind of gets you, it's for your respiratory system, it's for your cognitive alertness. So I do that, and I prime myself. In the morning, I do lemon juice to cleanse my liver, because that's the only time that you can do it before you put anything into your body. You want to cleanse out your system. And then I don't really meditate, but I do what is called, I listen to theta brainwave music. And theta brainwave music, and I do auto-suggestions every morning. And I used to laugh at what is called, positive words of affirmation. I remember walking into this girl that I was dating, and she had all this shit on the mirror, like, I am worthy. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And I judged the shit out of it, but she was way fucking ahead of me, because that's what I got now. So it's really about just being transparent, being honest with yourself. I do, when I coach and stuff like that, I talk about clarity, and I use it as an acronym. So it's connection is the C, L is love, A is your attitude, needs to be in gratitude. So I guarantee you, if you guys start practicing daily gratitude for 30 days, your life will change. R is for response. So we have the ability to respond by our words. We have these different choices that either moves us into chaos or into clarity. And then we have I as our intuition. So the closer you move to whatever is faith, you talk about faith, whether it's source energy, whatever you believe in, the closer that you move to that, you move closer to your sixth sense. Or we have our five senses, right? But our intuition, we have a natural intelligence that really resides in our brain hemisphere and in our heart space. And the closer that you move to that, the more you're in tune with your intuition. And the T is for transparency. So because we lose our ability to be vulnerable and to be authentic, we also lose it with ourselves. So we have to learn to be truthful with what's serving us and what's not serving us, what habits that we're doing that are serving us and what habits are being destructive. And the Y is for yes. Give yourself permission to feel. Feel. What we're not doing is we're not feeling. We're always just pushing, suppressing our emotions down. So we need to give ourselves permission to feel. And that's what I do.
Powerful. Blue?
I'm kind of a combination of things. I'm a great number. I video games myself and weed to death just to get out of it. But I'm also, I have an amazing network of friends and family that it's very important to me to know the personnel in your life. And so I know people that make me happy. I know who to call when I need things. And I know that they're going to be honest with me. They're going to be present. I have friends that pull me off the ledge a lot of time. College friends, we've been friends 30-something years now. It's a myriad of coping mechanisms because it wasn't something that was taught, so it's been learned. So you kind of trying to figure out what's working while at the same time trying to figure it out for my artist. So sometimes even in giving them breaks, it's really a break for me as well. And getting back to the fun, getting back to, we'll be on tour. Nick said, this is an amusement park. This is something fun. We get back to having, you gotta take it off for a minute. You gotta take off everything and get back to that fun. Yeah, and don't be afraid to laugh at yourself, to laugh at people. Just you gotta find humor in a lot that goes on, and in that, it allows me, and what I really learned helps me out is I find peace in knowing that I'm not the only one going through the stuff that I'm going through. And it's not in a way where, ooh, good, I'm not the only fool over here, but more like, okay, well, Adrian's dealing with some BS too, so I don't feel alone in it. And if we're able to feel vulnerable and safe enough, we might actually talk. And then we can talk about how he dealt with it, how I dealt with it. And now we're both growing. And then our job is then to take that experience that we learned and then to pass it to the next cat that comes in, they look like they're stressed and they're not dealing with it. And you tell them, it's okay to breathe. It's okay to apologize. Whatever you got to deal with. So that's kind of how I do. I'm a constant, my post on Instagram, on Facebook, all of that is my therapy. I just be getting shit out on my head. That's it.
Good stuff. Adrian?
I mean, I do exactly what they do. For real. Love. I didn't get the nickname not having all love and compassion and being about that full time. The numbing, I actually changed up the top of the year. Stopped smoking, stopped drinking, stopped eating meat, refined sugars. I just want to try something different. 52, what we gonna do? We gotta switch it a little bit. So, exactly. And we don't know our number. So any of my artists will quickly tell you, I see my niece in the back here, any of the people that I work with will quickly tell you, I will shut completely down and tell them to take a break on their cycle. Relax. Everything can't be on. You gotta take this and never let someone step in, around, on top of your joy. I'm not going to. And that's us being responsible to ourselves. And sometimes we got to make the responsible decisions just to say no, and be careful that we know no, and be in that moment when we say it. Because yes is good for everybody when they're hearing you say yes, 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 but sometimes no is as important. So I don't let joy in my heart alleviate anything except for, you know, the opportunity to be more in it, period.
There it is. Positive wisdom from our panel. And we appreciate all the questions in that. I mean, and this has been an important conversation on many levels. I mean, I've learned just hearing so much wisdom, receiving inspiration. I know we all have, and even, you know, some of the statements and questions that have come from our audience has been remarkable. So, you know, I think we could talk all day about this, and we should further the talk. But I believe our time is coming to an end. Oh, of course.
I'll throw you mine. Hello, everybody. My name is Dominique. From South LA, photographer. I'm somewhat called as an East Side baby from LA, originally from out here. My question is, well, grew up in the foster care system. I have an older brother who was formerly incarcerated for about 5-6 years. He was born in the 80s. He got out when I'm 29 now. He got out when I was like 22. And he's like an ex-gang member. And I just want to know if anybody have resources or go back to the questions about how did you deal with the artists or just black men in general about you need therapy, you should see a therapist, how to have that discussion without them saying, oh no, that's weak, that's weird, that ain't, you know, that ain't for me. And then as well, I want to throw in there because it's like hip hop. I just finished up an internship with DJ Dane Dane. He runs Deaf Beat Entertainment. So that was a dope opportunity. But yeah, I just want to know if it's like any recommendation how to approach that conversation or if anyone in the room knows resources for, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's multiple people in the room.
Right in the front row, right in front of you.
Front row. That could definitely help.
Yeah, you go. You're right there.
One thing that we did discuss, I mean, to your point early on that we didn't get to dive as deep in is the stigma, is the ideas. And it's interesting that you bring that up because since about 2007, I've been specifically with juveniles, incarcerated juveniles. I would go to Silmar and we would do different creative writing processes and stuff to allow them to emote. And literally, that's a therapy process. And I probably started doing therapy outside of the church in prison systems. You know what I mean? I graduated from Howard University in 2020 with a criminology degree, but it's specifically going into these facilities of incarceration because that's where it's most needed, obviously. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, if you get an opportunity to talk and build with your brother, he's witnessed therapy without even knowing that because, you know, in those facilities, there's good therapy and bad therapy. You know what I mean? There's sometimes we think we just put a man in a box and he hopefully, you know, come out better. But when you think about what a penitentiary is, the root of that word is repentance, and in that sense is the process of healing. But we've treated them as cages to this point. But I believe, I have faith in in that element of our system that, you know, the more we get involved in these facilities of incarceration and speak mental health and give them these processes, that they can use that time while they sit down and become better individuals mentally, spiritually, and physically. But that's just myself personally. Again, I know we're running out of time. We appreciate it. I would encourage everybody to mingle, to network, because there are some powerful people in this building, not just the brothers up here that I share this panel with, but you know, so much wisdom in the audience. And we would want to thank, you know, the Grammy Museum, MusiCares, the Recording Academy, everyone here today, and everybody and the hip hop museum that's coming up too. Shouts out to that. We need that. The Universal Hip Hop Museum. So yeah, absolutely. We appreciate everybody being here today. God bless you guys, and again, you know, do your best and let God do the rest.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick Cannon. Thank you, Adrian Miller. Thank you, Michael Blue Williams, and thank you, Eric Brooks. Thank you, Dr. Flo, Nakia, JC, and Ed. I know we didn't get to talk. And all of you here today, please know that Grammy Museum is committed to continuing this conversation, partnering with all the wonderful organizations here, including the Universal Hip Hop Museum, the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective, and MusiCares. We will send a resource list to anyone who signed up for this program today. so you can see where you can go to further the conversation and get those resources. Thank you all. Have a great evening, and thank you, gentlemen. It was an amazing,
God bless
profound
you.
day. Thank you.
Yeah, I know.